So it's been a while since I did one of these videos, and I wanted to show you where I've managed to get to with actual control of the GT Core, the Boss Looper, and OnSong all working in sync. So for example, if I'm able to sort of patch down here, how everything's changing. And if I patch up, you can see how everything is now changing. And also if I scroll out of sequence, in terms of out of numerical sequence with the patching up and down, how I'm able to get everything to talk to each other. Beyond that, I've now added this little iCTRL-DS from DAElectronics, and I'm now able to sit there and foot control to go next song, previous song, start scroll, to sort of do that and stop the scroll and everything else. So that's a great little foot control and MIDI control, completely Bluetooth enabled. So again, this is all completely Bluetooth. This isn't wired up, this is just being powered at the moment. This is all working remotely and wirelessly, as well as the Boss control system, which I showed you before with the WiDi jack, how you're able to use the Boss Tone Studio on your phone to control this. Presently, I've got it wired up through MIDI as well. So a USB cable, because while I'm configuring the patches over here, I want to be able to test things. And just to show you how it's working, if I sort of control a different one over here, it's changing everything around. So if I, for example, click this one here, there you see it's just changed everything in sequence. Equally, if I sort of go to the next one over there, it'll sit there and it'll connect, it'll change it over on the actual MIDI controlled via USB here. So this is purely just for sort of setting things up while I'm getting everything loaded and preloaded and everything over here. But really, where I'd got to the previous videos, I couldn't get the WiDi jack to control everything the way I wanted it to go. And I had to go and buy a second WiDi jack, which I have here. And I put that into the looper. And as a result of it, I managed to get everything to work. But I've not been happy with that, especially now I'm starting to sort of think about how do I widening out the pedal board. And you can see it's a complete mess because I'm still in the process of building it out. But it was really trying to work out this MIDI control of these things. And I wanted to try and eventually get down to having one jack that controls absolutely everything. And that's going to be the next task in terms of this pedal board build. But for the moment, I'm trying to get how do all these work together. So that's what I'm going to run through today, is how do I actually get these things talking and set up? How have I managed to finally crack it? And beyond that, I want to show you something really, really cool, which you may or may not have seen before, which is how I'm able to sit there now and actually control the drive inputs of the different guitars that I have. So as I sit there and pick up a different guitar, press one of these buttons, how I'm automatically able to change the tone on through the core. Beyond that, we can even go to a next stage on, where I now have an entire visual representation of the pedal board and how I'm able to sit there and control and turn effects on and off globally, not at patch level, globally on the GT Core. So this is incredible how we've managed to get there. And this is using SysEx, which has been such a massive, complicated learning curve for me. But I'm going to try and expose and take you through how all this works and break it down so we can sit there and understand how this is all working today. So let's start back at the beginning in terms of how these things are sort of talking and working together. So let's look at the settings. So press the menu, come across to MIDI, select the MIDI, and let's look and see what the MIDI settings are. So first of all, on the GT Core, you can see there I've chosen the channel. Now, to make things super easy, I've got this set at channel 10, this set at channel 5, and we've got here MIDI through is set over here, and MIDI out. The USB is also set to MIDI out, because that's where I'm able to sit there and control, use the MIDI control via the USB cable with the Mac at the same time as I'm controlling all the other devices. So this is why we want MIDI through and USB through, both saying MIDI, MIDI out. The sync clock, I've got auto as well, because we're eventually going to want to have everything linking together in terms of the times, so the tap tempo and everything can sort of work out and get all those set up. I don't need Omni mode set on. I found that was what was happening when I was having this set up, is everything was working in, as I was patching up and down in here, it was automatically changing the patches here. Now I don't want that. I only want this to change when, or these to change when they're actually something loaded in. So if I've got a particular song loaded up and a patch song here, I then want these things to change. But otherwise, I may want to patch just some random patch inside here. Could be a chorus, could be a different verse, could be a different intro, could be a different sequence. It could be a completely different patch set of effects. And I don't want to be changing the looper or the OnSong at the same time. So this is why the Omni mode must be switched off. Otherwise, if that's switched on, it's going to work. I've got the TX channel out to the same as the RX, that's in channel 10. So that's basically receiving and transmitting those words. You know, think R for receiving, transmitting is the same channel, so there. And the ID here, 17, is purely because of the SysEx and the way that works in terms of the channel numbering, the standard number. It actually works out in binary as actually 10 or 10. So it made it much easier for me to control the SysEx. We'll get to that. That's advanced level. Right, but let's sit there and work through these. Let's look at the settings over on here as well while we're at the situation. Setup general, come through MIDI, setup MIDI. Let's come into this. You can see there, the receive channel is on 5. Omni again sets off. Remote, again, this is set to channel 6 for the remote note. That's just for something completely different. And this is transmitting back to channel 10 because this is my master and this is my slave. And so everything I want to be sending is actually out through here. This is where I want to be sending the control messages out. So that's why I've got that set up there, just because I was trying to find it. I was finding it was being conflicted. So I had to set that to the same as my channel. Maybe it's wrong, but this is the only way I've managed to so far get this working. Cabling, right, okay. So the first thing is we take the cable from the cable in, okay. That is now going in to the out of the WiDi jack. We're going, the cable in is receiving from the cable out of here, of the looper. And then we just have a cable, a standard 3.5 to 3.5 cable all the way through to complete that circuit. So that's where we've managed to get to. So one long cable, which I've put the links on before on Amazon, just to get a cable, just to work it through. This cable's a special cable to get the length. So you'll need a 2.5 to a 3.5 cable, TRS cable, just to sit there and get those working together. Now that is where those things are all working. And how do we get these things to talk together? We use an app, which is called Audio Bus. And within Audio Bus, I've got them working 2 different ways. So the first thing is I've got OnSong as my master, connecting to the various WiDi jacks I have. And again, the idea is to get down to these to 1 WiDi jack and not 4 or 5 as I've currently got. And the same thing here is because this is actually on a Bluetooth as well, I need to have this set up as a Bluetooth, again, talking to all these different pieces. So if I'm, for example, going to one of these devices here, oops, there we go. It's telling me what is currently connected. Okay, so within the Bluetooth, so I'm basically letting this audio bus as the software Bluetooth controlling all of the devices. And you can call the WiDi names any device name you want. I mean, they're all called WiDi Jack, but in order just to sort of rename them and go into the WiDi app, you know, the CME app that lets you control this to update the firmware. That's where you set all the names up for those. And they're transmitted over via Bluetooth then. Okay, make sure you're using the latest firmware, because I found that the previous firmware, it wasn't working the way I wanted to work now, which is why I sort of left it for a while before we got set up. So how do we set these up so they all talk to each other? Well, let's start at the patch level over here. And if we go into one of the patches that we've set up, we go into the control expression and we come across here to patch MIDI. You can see here I've set the channel up 5 to the MIDI PC program change here of 55. Now basically what I'm doing is making sure that the number of here, 55, is preloaded in to 55 over here. So this is my backing tracks. So 1 to 50, I'm just having a complete random play of different patches. But once I've got the patches worked out, I've started to work from 50 upwards, and I'm just going to using the same 50 up here. It means the first 50 loops of here I can play what I want. First 50 patches I after one, After that, the numbers, they start to work together. It doesn't matter because these numbers are irrelevant. I'll be able to control it through the OnSong. So it doesn't matter what order any of these are in. The set list up here will control the relevant the patches and backing tracks if I have and want both of those together. So this is where we start this up. So we're saying in each patch, that's the channel I want to speak to. This device here, channel 5. What patch number we want? 55, 55. Preload the backing track into 55 over here. Boom, press play over here. I've got the guitar sounds I want, the backing track I want. That's how they're talking. So it's as simple as that at this level. That has to be done per patch, because obviously you're trying to say what patch is going to be done for each one. So if we go to the next patch here, 56, for example, straight away you can see that's already setting those up and loading them in. It's really strange for some reason. The control expression does take a second to load when I've changed it, but then press it in, here we go. Channel 5, number 56, and that's literally how you go through. Each patch you go through, you just need to make sure that's setting up. That's now communicating to this over here. So now we've got these two talking to each other and changing to the relevant number that we want. It's that simple, okay? Do you keep a note of your devices and what channel numbers they're on? Because I trust you, when you get into it, you come back to it after a couple of weeks, you do forget. So it's always handy to have a mental note, or actually a written note, so it helps your memory. So that's how I've done it here. Now, similarly, how do we get these to talk to each other? If I press and hold down here, you can suddenly see that you're able to set there and say each one. I've set each one up as channel 10, channel 5, and now I've got a new one here called channel 7. Right, forget that at the moment. What's channel 10? So if I click on it, program change, channel 10 to what number it is. Now, what happens is OnSong, it comes up with a whole bunch of things, tremolo string. These are just all default numbers, but you can actually go in one and change the name. So I've actually gone in and changed the name and said 56, Hotel California, 55, High and Dry, 54, Wonderwall, just to help me work out where things are at. And you've got to do that per channel. So I've gone in and changed the channels as I've gone in and done them. And then all you're able to do, so what this is saying is, channel 10, this device, channel 5, this device, and now channel 7, this device. So I'm able to sit there, and if you've got everything set to a different channel, you basically means I could load up the actual guitar effects I want, the backing track I want. If I want to add in some extra reverb, extra delay, or any other effects that I want to be able to done that are MIDI controlled, as soon as you press the right song over here, boom, everything will talk to each other. And all we're doing is we're adding in those channels into there. It's that straightforward. So now, as I go into the next one over here, go a different way, we click on this here, we'll expect to see this, channel 10, channel 5 again. Again, it'll go through, and this time it'll be 55, and I've set the number 55 name to be the same. So I've got them all working together. So suddenly, this is how this is connected. Audio bus, remember? I've got my Bluetooth here on my Big Sky, Bluetooth here on these devices, and that's how they're talking. So the audio bus is creating the loop. I've added into the loop this new iController as well, which is purely just going for previous and next song. I didn't go with the Morningstar. Obviously, Pirate MIDI's not out yet. Morningstar, I didn't want to have another a WiDi dongle or a WiDi jack over, and I like the small new device and the Bluetooth and the other functionality that the DAElectronics has gone with. And Dom's been fantastic at sort of looking at some new firmware and new visual interface ideas. I love this little device, very small, very compact, battery operated. It's got a great wah if you want to be able to use that there, and it's got MIDI in both in TRS and in DIN, so you've got all options together in one little small device. Battery powered, very, very small and convenient, and that's great. I love that. So be able to use their setup there and change those up. That's where I'm able to sit there now and put that into this loop here. So if we go back into here, so now I've got, this is now talking to these because it's sending out one signal, sending out high and dry channel 10, high and dry channel 5, therefore it's going to set this and this. Similarly, if we go to the next one round again, you know, there we go. The next one around again is going to create that channel 65, 65, okay? The fact this is just a blank patch at the moment doesn't matter. That's a patch I've got to work on to, you know, to set that patch up. So all I'm trying to do is to get these things to talk and make sure they're all going in numerical sequence. So there we go. It's sort of working and it's connecting all these things together. So remember, in patch level up here, oops, this has gone offline. Patch level up here, set the correct channel number, the correct patch number, and providing you've got a detailed record of your patch numbers, and that's what I said, keep them written down. So for example, on here, I've got them, I know what songs are at what numbers, so it helps me sit there and work out what channel, what patch number. I'm able to sit there and figure them out, so it helps me when I come to the programming of these devices. That's now OnSong talking to Core, talking to the loop station, all working from one single WiDi jack. And you've got that complete control. And if you want to go in and control and do any of the patch updates via Bluetooth, yes, you can do that. Boss Tone Studio, up on your mobile phone, you've got control of that as well remotely. Brilliant, fantastic. But that's not enough, is it? We want to go a stage further. So now, obviously, this is just going to go straight up in terms of numeric patches. This is going to be able to sit there and control, you know, visually here. I've got, if I want to go to next song, boom, next song, boom, previous song. Now the next song here is the next song in the set list. However, whichever way you've got them ordered, I've just got them alphabetical at the moment, just because it helps me to work them out. But you would, whatever set list you would set up in here, the next song here is a different way of controlling, whereas this one is always going to be patch up, patch down numerically, which works great for making sure that all these numbers are set up. You know, as I said over here, the 51, 52, 53, or whatever, you want to be able to know what song and where everything is linked together. But come in a live situation, you'd never do that. You'd always sit there and have these in whatever order that you wanted to work them through. Okay, so I've just chose a random few bunch of songs to sit there and connect with them at the moment. The idea is in a set list situation, it's the next one in your set list, the next one or the back one on the set list, start the scroll and all the rest of it. Play the backing track if you need that, or effects or drums or whatever you've got set up here, or use it as a loop. So maybe, for example, there's no backing track, but you're going to use this to create a live loop scenario. All of that's great, and you'll be able to control the ups and downs through an external MIDI device. So that's the reason why we've got two controllers. One is for set lists, one is for patch up and down on the core. And if there is a relevant backing track or a particular place that I want to having on the looper, it may be going to a blank place on the looper. That's how we've got those set up. Now, how do we get, we've worked out how to send from here to here. We've worked out how to send the actual patch level from here to here and here, okay? And it's purely done on the MIDI numbers, the patch change numbers, and that's how we're doing. And the next situation is we've managed to get the core to talk to the looper, and the looper to, and OnSong to talk to both of these devices. Remember, if we push this name up here, it's telling me that it's sending information and changing the correct patches as I want them in OnSong, but I want it to work the other way around. What happens if I select a patch over here? So for example, 57, 56, it works fine. When I go to 58, nothing's happening. Why is that? Well, for a start, it's because I haven't set it up over here. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure that I've set it up in this situation over here. So let's make sure that we've got that set up. So again, control, expression, patch MIDI, there we go. So that's the first thing I need to do. Here, 5, and here should be 58, okay. Let's close that, and then let's write that patch there. And we'll just ignore what the name is at the moment because we want to set the patch up. Right. So that's now saved. Now basically, if I've now gone 57 here, Right, now suddenly we've got this changing to 58. That's, yeah, it looks like it's all out of love. Okay, that's fine. And remember, that's what I said, we forget what the things are, hence why I've got them written down so I know what order and what numbers they're all currently set to, so I can figure out what they are, especially when I've got blank patches and I need to know what the names are. So how do we get this? You can see here then, that's changing, 57, 56, 57, 58. These two are talking, this one's not. So if I go to the settings here, go to editors, MIDI. This is where the MIDI triggers is basically now OnSong listening. Now there are two ways of doing this. I can press this button here to say tap to listen to a MIDI channel on say channel 5, okay? And then I can say when that now changes here, and you can see here there's a whole bunch of information that's coming in that I really don't want to be listening to, right? So it's just messy and I'll leave that switched off, okay? Let's come out of there again. I don't want to save any of that. I come into the editors again, go to MIDI. There we go. So it's back to what I've had saved. So this time, rather than actually listening to the channel, listening to every single message that's coming in, and sometimes these things send lots of different system messages, SysEx messages, and that's why it gets a little bit messy and confusing. I found it easier to go in and manually do this. So I'm going to sit there and say program. Oh, no, press the wrong button. Program on channel 5, okay, and the program should be 58. So we go up to 58 here, and I've already named it up here. There you go, 58 is all out of love, done. That is the MIDI event, and you can see there, that is now setting up. So it's now currently listening for number 58, which I've happened to rename in OnSong already to channel 5. Now what happens when I click that button? I want it to basically go to song, and I want to switch it to 58, which is all out of love. There we go. And then we can press save on there. Right, so this time round, there we go. So now 57, 58. So there you see, I've now managed to change it. So suddenly now I've got this listening to what's going on over here. This patch is speaking to 58 over here. This one, when this is set up onto the right track, will automatically send a signal over to there, and that's my channel 5. So now we've created our loop. So now it doesn't matter whether I'm going backwards and forwards in the set list here, or we're going up and down the patches here. All of these things are working together. So that's 57, 58, for example, and that's now alphabetical order of love, B, C, whatever. They're all alphabetical, and you can suddenly see how they're all working. So that's now the basis of how we've got all these working here. Now the next thing is we wanted to say is I've got this visual representation of my pedal board, and I've fictitiously called it as in third and seconder and whatever, because it's in terms of the third effects, the second effects, to be able to turn things on and off at this level, okay? To be able to turn things on the core at a global level. Now, at a patch level, you could do this in the same way as I could sit there and press the manual buttons here, and then I can turn things on. Phaser on, you know, flanger on, flanger off. But what I'll be able to do is, I might be able to turn these things on and off. For example, flanger here is set to FX2. If I'm able to sit there and push that here, you can see there, it's turned the flanger on. If I double click this up here, I've turned my flanger off. How the heck have I done that? Right, this is going to get very clever and very tricky, because this took us a while to figure this one out. The first thing OnSong lets you do is to take in an image. Okay, so if I go to say a photos, here we go. Find a photograph I like. You can take a photograph. I mean, this is just a photograph I've grabbed off the internet, or you can create your own in terms of Photoshop, which is what I did. I had to sort of do this backwards and forwards until I found them to get to the right size. But what you're able to do is click this here, and you move up there, and you can say add to OnSong. And what that now is going to do is it's going to create a page with a photograph in it as opposed to a text file. Okay, that's the first situation. And that's where we end up with a page in OnSong that looks like this. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to create a bunch of notes. Now these notes you can see here, you press this button here, sticky note, okay? And we're going to do this one and say test, okay? And you can see there it creates a yellow text. And in the bottom right hand corner, I've got a little edit button, and I can sit there and I can say, right, move it across, move it down, move it across the bill, wherever I want it to figure out in terms of the positioning of the text. I can press this button here and I can say choose the different font. I can choose the text, the note color, and I can choose the text color. So maybe, for example, I want the text to be, say, white, but I only want the whiteness to be, say, 70% or something. Okay, so I want it slightly transparent. What size font do I want it? Rotation, scale, do I want it to have a little shadow around it? You can see the shadow, the drop shadow. No, I don't need the shadows, so take the shadows off. Oops. Let's get rid of the shadows. Okay, and that's now basically, and if I turn around here and say the note color, I could make the note totally transparent. Now you suddenly can't see that because it's white text on terms of there. I know it's there. But if that's over an image, let's just change the note color to something which we could see. Change the text to black, gray or something. You can suddenly see how you've got complete control over what that thing looks like. You can also, where you're going to push it. Okay, so where I can position it. And then what you're able to do is at that stage is you're able to sit there and lock that into its position. So once you've actually figured out the size of the note, and I can say make the scale of the note smaller, so I want to make a small note, okay, and then you lock that into position, that will stay in that position wherever I go. Okay, so that's the first thing. I've created a bunch of notes here and I've set them all to invisible with a 70% white text. I've moved them over what looks like the actual foot buttons, okay, of the graphic. If I come into this again, you can see down here I've got this no actions assigned. Now here I can set all sorts of things up. I can say jump around OnSong, load up another song, load this, load whatever else. But this time I want to do something that's really, really clever. And I want to be able to sit there and say, do something. You know, you can set up a video, you can control videos, you can all sorts of project lyrics, all sorts of clever stuff. But I want to be able to do a MIDI event, okay? And I want to do a MIDI event send. Now, it's saying there's no MIDI events added. Again, I could listen for the MIDI events and try and capture something that I'm doing over there to record it. And I tried all sorts of different wonderful ways, and it was all a complete mess. But if I add in here, I can say what type, and I've got this button called SysEx. Now, Boss uses SysEx, okay? It's a language, it's a string of numbers, okay, that basically tell the device what to do at a system level. Think about global control. Okay, now let me show you what one of those looks like. So if I go into one of these over here, and if I magically press the invisible button, I've said there, I've got, if I press the send buttons, I've got there send single tap and a double tap. And I've got a send, and the send is a SysEx type, and the value is, and it's a string of letters and numbers. This is hexadecimal, okay? And it's broken down into 3 sections. It's broken down into the device, oops, you can see that. It's broken down into the device. It's broken into what the actual, say for example, effects, or what is it the actual, I'm trying to call on the machine, and then it's trying to work out the value in terms of, you know, I want to say, turn phaser on, you know, so I'm talking to the Boss GT-1000, I want to talk to the phaser, and I want to put phaser on, or I want to put phaser off. And each one of those translates into a bunch of numbers. Now, I've got a file that Johan Walters and I helped write together, where we actually figured out what is those SystemX messages that you're able to do. Boss creates a SysEx in terms of it's a really difficult programming, how do you create SysEx messages from scratch? To a non-programmer like me, it meant nothing. So it took a while to get my head around it. I've tried to write it in English in a very simple way to figure out how do you actually get to those messages. But that's beyond what I'm doing here now. But let's try and copy this message here. If I just copy that number, say for example, we've already pre-programmed them in and we know what those things are. Okay, if I now come over here and I'm going to sit there and press this edit button here, what I would do is I would say go to here, I go to my MIDI, events, send, I'm going to add, and what am I going to do? I'm going to add in a SysEx message, and what is the value? The value is paste, okay? Now, done, okay? Done. Now, if I press this here, look what's happening, data receiving. So something's happening. This has just sent a message at a global level to this device. Okay, that's what SysEx does. It basically gets out of the patch level. So patch level is where I'm able to turn things on and off. But what if I want to be able to have stuff I can't see on the screen, but I want to be able to turn on and off? Now I could create little icons all the way down the side, or little, I could create some bunch of buttons here and say turn tuner on, turn tuner off, turn this on, turn this off. So for example, if I want to turn around and say turn the phaser, I know what the phaser code is. So let's look at what the phaser is FX1. So if I go to say, what have I got here? Primary tone FX1. If I click the edit button here, if I copy that SysEx code, and bearing in mind I will put a link to the actual file of what you can do to download them. If I'm able to sit there here, edit this, edit that, send SysEx, and I'm going to change the value this time to that value, okay, which is the effects number 1 code. So that translates to turn effects 1 on. Let's press done. So now what's going to happen is, I can turn the phaser off. I can turn the flanger on. But if I push this button here, it's turned the phaser on. Turn it off. Turned it on. Turn it off. So now I've got a visual way of turning on and off. And you could do this for potentially anything. Anything that's ability to send SysEx messages. Now currently, for example, my MIDI device, and not many MIDI devices actually let you send SysEx messages. So I'm not able to have global control, but I could set up patch level control, for example, within here. I can send out programmed messages or PC or CC, which is variations, so if I want to get deep down into the phaser and I want to set the phaser at a certain level, yes, I could do that, providing it's set up within the patch. But what I'm talking about here is global settings. So yes, I did that visually at the moment just to be a phaser so you could see what I'm happening, but I could turn anything on and off. Anything that's not on this screen, I could turn around here and say, turn the tuner on, turn the, turn the delay on, turn the delay off, do whatever I want to be able to do. And I'd have a visual thing. I could even do it so as it comes down to a particular here, as it gets down to the scroll, I could send a system message out. So for example, I could turn around here and say, when it gets to the chorus, send a bunch of SysEx messages. And I want to be able to say is when it hits the chorus, without even me touching it, just purely by the scroll at the speed at which it's playing, I could say, turn on the delay, turn off the reverb, turn on the division 1, and I would send out a bunch of system messages there, so I'm able to sit there, and as it gets through the actual song and plays the song, it automatically is communicating with it. That is the power of MIDI, and that's the power of SysEx at a global level. And yes, your GT Core does that. So that's how I've got it here. So I've got everything there, every one of these effects. So you can appreciate I've only got 3 buttons here, but I've got every potential opportunity to turn the amps on, turn the amps off. Like I said, so the center returns on. I can even change the actual thing. So if I press Strat here, all right, if I go to my menu, so if I go into here, for example, my in-out settings, inputs, for example, I've already got, 1, 2, 3, guitars set up. So I've got my, for example, my Taylor, my Strat, and my Les Paul, okay, all set up as different level inputs. You can see there they're changing. So the idea is, rather than actually having to go through and touch this device and all the rest of it, if I get over and just change my guitar, I'm able to sit there and actually want to have different input levels. What I'm able to do, for example, is if I press this here, you can see it's changed it to the Strat. If I press this over here, it's changed it to the Les Paul at a system level without me even touching the device. That is what SysEx does. Okay, so these are all just got invisible, transparent notes, so you don't even see them. So it's a very simple visual way. They're all basically a bunch of notes here that I've created, so I'll be able to turn things on, turn things off. I've tried different stuff where I've all been testing things out. You know, can I get this stuff to change? It's all been playing around, and once you've done it, you set them up as invisible notes, sending a SysEx message, and you're able to have complete global control of this GT Core. That's where we've got to, guys. That's amazing. And it's not just that, like I said, I've managed to get it into a situation now where I'm able to, if I go through different sort of songs, you can suddenly see there, that's now changed that. If I come back out of it, you know, I've got them now set up. So if I go to a different level, you know, if I sort of change a different device to a different level, to something over here, I come back in. There we go, it's changed it back again. And again, that's just purely because on this situation, program change, setting up a different program change. And again, I could rename that to actually something that's more user-friendly. I can call it Hotel California, I can call it Hotel California, or I could call it the Epiphany on the big sky and call it in here so I know exactly what events I'm talking about in the actual, you know, OnSong. So this is how we are able to control OnSong. Using OnSong as a master, using my core, using my looper for backer tracks, being able to sit there and go next song, previous song, or go up or down the patches in here, and to actually have some kind of visual way of being able to control not just these two devices, but now potentially any other MIDI device I want to now put to my pedal board. That's how amazing and powerful MIDI is, and how simple it is to use it within OnSong. And thanks amazing to Dumb for creating this wonderful device here. You know, I'm looking forward also to getting a Pirate MIDI at some point and having a play around with that to be able to have different level controls. But that's just showing you how you're able to take something like a little powerful little box like this, set your tones up about how it becomes a master with an iPad, you know, that's working, you know, completely wirelessly. You know, stick it up wherever you want to be able to put it on your and control everything on your guitar. All the tones, all the settings, everything in here, even though you've only got 3 little buttons here. That's where we got to. So I hope you enjoyed that. Any questions, please ask in the comments. I know it's super difficult, and I will put access to the SysEx file, you know, how to actually write or understand SysEx. I'll submit that information. To be honest, it's something that Boss should have supplied. They give you all the ways of working it out and some of the parameters, but it's not very easy in terms of how do you actually string these words together. And huge thanks to Johan Walters for actually being able to explain it to me. And hopefully I can find a way of explaining it to everybody else. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll look forward to it, and I'll maybe the next time the video, it'll actually show you where we got to with the rest of the pedal board. Okay, have a good day, guys. Bye.